If they don't value you, don't argue, don't beg, don't chase. Leave quietly. One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that not everyone will recognize your worth. Some people will overlook your kindness, ignore your loyalty, take your love for granted, benefit from your generosity while giving very little in return. And the painful part is this: the more you try to convince them of your value, the less they seem to appreciate it. The Stoics understood this truth long before our modern world existed. They knew that your peace should never depend on someone else's ability to recognize your worth. Because your value does not increase when someone praises you, and it does not decrease when someone ignores you. A diamond remains a diamond even if it lies unnoticed beneath the earth. Likewise, a person of character remains valuable even when surrounded by people who cannot appreciate them. Many people stay too long where they are merely tolerated. They remain in friendships that drain them, relationships that diminish them, workplaces that exploit them. They convince themselves that if they love harder, give more, sacrifice more, eventually they will be appreciated. Sometimes that happens, but often, the more available you become, the more invisible you become. Because what people receive without effort is often treated without gratitude. Today we will discuss why the Stoics believe that quietly walking away is sometimes the greatest act of self-respect. Not because you hate people, not because you seek revenge, but because your peace deserves protection. Subscribe to Stoic Reflections for more videos on Stoicism, emotional intelligence, self-mastery, and mental strength. Because the strongest people are not those who force others to value them. They are the ones who quietly leave places where they are not valued. Point number 1. Stop trying to convince people of your worth. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that their value depends on being recognized. They explain themselves endlessly. Work harder for approval. Become more generous, more available, more accommodating, hoping someone will finally say, "I appreciate you." But appreciation that must be forced is rarely genuine. There was a young man named Michael. Michael was the kind of person everyone relied on. Whenever someone needed help, he was there. Whenever someone needed money, he gave it. Whenever someone needed advice, he listened for hours. People constantly praised him for being dependable. Yet something troubled Michael. Whenever he needed support, very few people showed up. When he celebrated achievements, many ignored them. When he struggled, most disappeared. Still, Michael blamed himself. He believed he simply needed to become even better, more generous, more patient, more understanding. Years passed. Nothing changed. One evening, Michael visited his grandfather. The old man listened quietly as Michael explained his frustration. When he finished speaking, his grandfather asked one simple question. "Why are you working so hard to earn a seat at a table where nobody saved a chair for you?" Michael was silent. The old man continued, "Son, people who value you do not require endless proof of your worth." Those words echoed in Michael's mind for weeks. Eventually, he realized something painful. He had spent years trying to convince people to appreciate what they had already decided to ignore. The Stoics understood this perfectly. They believed your character should never depend on another person's recognition. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that a good person continues doing good because goodness is part of their nature, not because applause follows. But there is another lesson hidden within Stoicism. Being good does not mean remaining where goodness is constantly exploited. Virtue does not require self-neglect. Kindness does not require self-abandonment. Michael slowly changed. He stopped chasing approval, stopped volunteering for every request, stopped apologizing for protecting his own time. At first, some people became angry. Others called him selfish. A few accused him of changing, and they were right. He had changed. For the first time in years, he respected himself. Something remarkable happened. The people who genuinely cared about Michael stayed. The people who only valued what he could provide quietly disappeared. And although he had fewer people around him, he had more peace than ever before. The Stoics believe quality always outweighs quantity. One loyal friend is worth more than 100 people who remember you only when they need something. Think about a beautiful garden. A wise gardener waters healthy plants, removes weeds, protects the soil. He does not waste every drop of water trying to revive plants that refuse to grow. Your emotional energy works the same way. If you spend your life trying to convince people to appreciate you, you will have little energy left for those who already do. One of the greatest acts of wisdom is recognizing where your presence is celebrated and where it is merely tolerated. There is another story about a talented sculptor named Elias. For years, he created magnificent works of art, yet the village where he lived showed little interest. People criticized his work, mocked his dreams, told him he was wasting his life. Elias nearly destroyed his sculptures because he believed perhaps they were right. Then an elderly traveler passed through the village. He saw one of Elias's unfinished statues and stood speechless. Finally, he said, "This belongs in a palace, not hidden in this forgotten town." Months later, Elias accepted an invitation to work in another city. There, people admired his craftsmanship, respected his dedication, supported his growth. The sculptures had not changed. The audience had. That is a lesson many people never learn. Sometimes your worth is not the problem. Sometimes you are simply standing in the wrong environment. The Stoics taught us not to waste life demanding recognition from those incapable of giving it. Instead, go where virtue is respected. Go where kindness is appreciated. Go where your character is welcomed rather than exploited. Never confuse familiarity with belonging. Some people become so accustomed to being overlooked that they mistake neglect for normality. Do not make that mistake. You deserve relationships where respect flows naturally, where loyalty is mutual, where appreciation is genuine. And if those things do not exist, leave quietly, not with anger, not with revenge, not with dramatic speeches, just quietly, because silence often communicates more dignity than arguments ever could. Never beg for a place in someone's life. If they cannot see your value while you are standing beside them, walking away is not losing them. It is finally choosing yourself. Point number 2. Stop chasing people who keep walking away. One of the greatest signs that someone does not truly value you is this. You are always the one chasing, always the one calling first, always the one apologizing, always the one making the effort to keep the relationship alive. At first, you tell yourself they are busy. You make excuses for them. You convince yourself that next week will be different. Next month they will have more time. Next year they will appreciate everything you have done. But weeks become months. Months become years. And nothing changes. The Stoics believe that relationships should be built on mutual respect, not endless pursuit. A friendship cannot survive if only one person is carrying it. Love cannot flourish when only one heart is fighting. Respect cannot exist where only one person keeps proving their loyalty. There was a young woman named Sarah. Sarah treasured her closest friend. She remembered birthdays, checked in regularly, encouraged her during difficult moments, celebrated every success. But gradually, she noticed something painful. If she stopped sending messages, the silence continued. If she stopped making plans, nothing happened. If she stopped checking in, days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. It was as though the friendship only existed because she refused to let it die. One evening, after being disappointed once again, Sarah visited her aunt, a woman known for her quiet wisdom. Sarah asked, "Should I keep trying? Maybe one more conversation will change everything." Her aunt smiled gently and poured 2 cups of tea. Then she placed 1 cup in front of Sarah and left the other untouched. Minutes passed. The tea in the untouched cup slowly grew cold. Finally, her aunt said, "Notice something. No matter how warm the tea was when I poured it, if no one reaches for it, it eventually becomes cold." Relationships are the same. Warmth must be shared. It cannot come from only one side forever. Those words settled deep into Sarah's heart. For the first time, she understood that love should not feel like a full-time job performed by one person. The Stoics often reminded themselves that we cannot control the choices of others. We cannot force people to care. We cannot make someone value our presence. We cannot convince someone to invest in a relationship they have already chosen to neglect. What we can control is our response. We can decide whether to continue exhausting ourselves or whether to step back with dignity. Sarah made a difficult decision. She stopped initiating every conversation. She stopped forcing meetings. She stopped sending message after message without receiving genuine effort in return. At first, the silence frightened her. She wondered if she had made a mistake. But then something surprising happened. The people who truly cared noticed her absence. They reached out. They asked how she was doing. They made an effort. The others never did. It hurt, but it also brought clarity. The silence revealed what constant effort had been hiding. Some relationships had ended long before she stopped chasing them. She had simply been carrying them alone. The Stoics believe clarity is a gift, even when it is painful. Because once you see reality clearly, you stop wasting your life fighting illusions. Imagine holding a rope in a tug of war. At first, you think another person is pulling from the opposite side. You struggle. You strain. You refuse to let go. Then one day, you look carefully. No one is there. You have been pulling against your own expectations all along. How many relationships continue only because you refuse to release the rope? How many conversations exist only because you always begin them? How many people remain in your life only because you continually rescue the connection? The Stoics would ask an uncomfortable question. If you stop chasing today, who would still come looking for you? The answer is not meant to create bitterness. It is meant to reveal truth. Because truth allows you to invest your energy wisely. There was another story about a traveler named Jonathan. As he walked through a forest, he noticed two rivers. One river flowed freely, constantly fed by fresh mountain streams. The other had nearly dried up. Jonathan tried to refill the dry river using a small bucket. Hour after hour, he carried water, yet the river remained almost empty. An old shepherd watched him quietly before saying, "You cannot keep a river alive if its source has disappeared." Jonathan understood immediately. Some relationships are like rivers. If both people continue pouring into them, they remain full of life. But if only one person keeps giving, eventually exhaustion replaces joy. The Stoics never encouraged emotional dependence. They encouraged emotional wisdom. Know the difference between loyalty and desperation. Loyalty is beautiful. Desperation is exhausting. Loyalty says, "I will stand beside those who stand beside me." Desperation says, "I will keep chasing those who keep leaving." These are not the same. Many people remain trapped because they fear loneliness. They believe that letting go means losing. But the Stoics believed something very different. Sometimes letting go is the first victory. Because every hour spent chasing someone who does not value you is an hour stolen from becoming the person you are meant to be. Every ounce of emotional energy spent begging for attention is energy unavailable for your own healing, for your own growth, for relationships that are capable of becoming something meaningful. Leaving quietly does not mean you stop caring. It means you finally stop forcing. And there is dignity in that. You do not need to announce your departure. You do not need revenge. You do not need to make them regret losing you. Life has a way of teaching its own lessons. Your responsibility is not to make people recognize your worth. Your responsibility is to recognize it yourself. Because the moment you truly value yourself, you stop running after people who keep running away from you. Never chase someone who keeps showing you the direction they want to go. Sometimes the strongest step you will ever take is the quiet step away. Point number 3. When respect disappears, your presence should too. Respect is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Without it, love becomes painful, friendship becomes exhausting, family becomes complicated, work becomes unbearable. Many people believe relationships fail because love disappears. The Stoics saw something different. Very often, relationships begin to collapse long before love fades. They collapse the moment respect quietly leaves. Because respect is what protects love. It protects trust. It protects loyalty. It protects dignity. When respect is gone, everything else slowly begins to crumble. There was a man named Andrew. Andrew loved his closest friend like a brother. For more than 15 years, they shared everything, celebrated victories together, supported one another during difficult times. They spoke almost every day. Andrew believed nothing could separate them. Then success entered his friend's life. Slowly, the conversations changed. The jokes became insults. The appreciation disappeared. Andrew's opinions were constantly dismissed. Whenever they were with other people, his friend mocked him to make others laugh. Each joke seemed harmless. Each insult was followed by laughter. Each disrespectful comment was disguised as humor. Andrew laughed too, not because it was funny, but because he didn't want to create conflict. Deep inside, something felt wrong. Yet he kept telling himself, "It's just a joke. He doesn't mean it. I'm probably being too sensitive." How often do people silence their own pain because they fear appearing weak? The Stoics warned against ignoring reality simply because reality is uncomfortable. One afternoon, Andrew visited his grandfather. After listening carefully, the old man walked into the garden. He pointed toward an old wooden fence. One board had begun to rot. The rest of the fence still looked beautiful. Then he asked, "What happens if I ignore this one damaged board?" Andrew replied, "Eventually the whole fence becomes weak." His grandfather nodded. Exactly. Disrespect works the same way. If you excuse it today, you will suffer from it tomorrow. Those words stayed with Andrew. He returned home and began paying attention. Not to promises, not to apologies, to patterns. He noticed something painful. The disrespect wasn't accidental. It was becoming normal. Each time he accepted it silently, it grew. Each time he ignored it, it returned. The Stoics believed people often repeat what is tolerated, not because they are necessarily cruel, but because boundaries teach others how to treat us. Andrew finally decided to change. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't insult his friend. He simply stopped making himself available. He stopped accepting invitations where he knew he would be mocked. He stopped allowing himself to become entertainment for someone else's ego. His friend noticed. For the first time in years, the balance shifted. Suddenly, Andrew's absence was louder than his presence had ever been. Sometimes people only recognize your value when they no longer have unlimited access to it. That realization often comes too late. The Stoics never encouraged revenge. They encouraged dignity. Dignity does not demand revenge. Dignity quietly removes itself from disrespect. Imagine owning a priceless piece of art. Would you leave it outside during a storm? Would you allow strangers to damage it without protection? Of course not. Then why do so many people leave their self-respect unprotected? Your dignity deserves at least as much care as your possessions. Perhaps even more. There was another story about a teacher named Rebecca. Every morning, she greeted her students with kindness. She encouraged them, supported them, believed in them. Most responded with respect. But one student repeatedly mocked her, interrupted lessons, ignored every boundary. The other teachers advised Rebecca to tolerate it. "He's just going through a phase. Don't take it personally." For months, she remained patient. Then one day, she calmly removed the student from the classroom until he was willing to participate respectfully. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't humiliate him. She simply demonstrated that respect was not optional. Weeks later, something remarkable happened. The student returned with a different attitude. Not because punishment changed him, because boundaries did. The Stoics understood that kindness without boundaries eventually becomes permission. True compassion includes self-respect. Many people confuse patience with endless tolerance. These are different virtues. Patience gives people room to grow. Endless tolerance gives people permission to continue hurting you. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you accepted disrespect simply because you feared losing someone? How many times have you laughed at words that wounded you? How many times have you remained silent while your dignity slowly disappeared? Remember this. Every relationship teaches people how to treat us. When respect is rewarded with trust, trust grows. When disrespect is rewarded with continued access, disrespect grows. The Stoics believed your peace is too valuable to be exchanged for temporary companionship. It is better to have a smaller circle built on respect than a crowded life filled with people who slowly erode your confidence. Leaving quietly does not mean you hate the other person. It means you love your peace enough to protect it. One day, Andrew met an old philosopher while walking through a park. The philosopher noticed Andrew looked lighter than before. He smiled and asked, "What changed?" Andrew answered, "I finally stopped fighting to stay where I was no longer respected." The philosopher nodded. "Then you have learned something many people never do." "What is that?" Andrew asked. The old man replied, "The door that closes behind disrespect often opens toward peace." Andrew walked home thinking about those words. Months later, his life looked different. He had fewer people around him, but those who remained respected him, listened to him, valued him. His circle had become smaller. His heart had become calmer. And for the first time in many years, he no longer felt lonely in a room full of people. Because genuine respect is worth far more than forced company, the Stoics would rather stand alone with dignity than remain surrounded by people who slowly destroy their self-worth. The moment respect leaves the relationship, let your silence follow. Because protecting your dignity is never an act of pride. It is an act of wisdom. Point number 4. Stop staying where you are merely tolerated. One of the most painful experiences a person can have is realizing they are no longer truly wanted. Not because anyone openly says, "Leave," but because everything else says it. The conversations become shorter. The invitations stop. Your presence is acknowledged but never celebrated. You are included out of habit, not because you are appreciated. At first, you ignore the signs. You tell yourself everyone is just busy. You make excuses for people. You convince yourself that things will eventually return to how they once were. But deep inside, you already know the truth. The Stoics believed one of the greatest forms of wisdom is accepting reality instead of arguing with it. Reality may hurt, but denial hurts much longer. There was a woman named Olivia. She had worked for the same company for nearly 12 years. She was loyal, dependable, always willing to help. She stayed late when others went home. She trained new employees. She solved problems without asking for recognition. For many years, she believed her dedication mattered. Then new management arrived. Slowly, everything changed. Her ideas were ignored. Her contributions went unnoticed. Others received credit for work she had done. Meetings were held without inviting her. Decisions were made without asking for her opinion. No one insulted her. No one openly rejected her. But every day, she felt less valued. She tried even harder. She worked longer hours, volunteered for more responsibilities, smiled through the disappointment, hoping someone would finally notice. Instead, she became even more invisible. One evening, exhausted after another long day, Olivia visited her father. He listened carefully without interrupting. Then he walked to the fireplace and placed another log onto a fire that had almost gone out. The log burned brightly for a moment, then slowly faded. Her father asked, "Do you know why this fire is dying?" Olivia shook her head. He replied, "Because no one is feeding it anymore." He looked at her and gently continued, "My daughter, some places stop feeding your spirit long before you realize it. You keep giving warmth, but nothing is warming you in return." Those words broke something inside her. Not because they were cruel, because they were true. The Stoics taught that every relationship, every workplace, and every friendship should contain mutual contribution, not perfect equality. but mutual respect, mutual appreciation, mutual effort. When one person gives endlessly while receiving nothing but indifference, peace quietly begins to disappear. Olivia spent weeks reflecting. She realized something painful. She had mistaken endurance for wisdom. She believed staying longer proved loyalty. In reality, it only prolonged her suffering. Eventually, she resigned. Not dramatically, not angrily. She thanked everyone for the opportunity, packed her belongings, and left quietly. A few months later, she joined another company. There, her ideas were welcomed. Her experience was respected. Her work was acknowledged. Nothing about Olivia had changed, only her environment. That is an important lesson. Sometimes you don't need to become better. You simply need to stop remaining where your value is constantly overlooked. The Stoics often compared life to a garden. Even the healthiest seed cannot flourish in poisoned soil. People often blame themselves for failing to bloom, without asking whether they have planted themselves in the wrong place. Imagine placing a magnificent eagle inside a tiny cage. After enough time, the eagle may stop trying to fly, not because it has forgotten how, but because it believes the cage is all that exists. Many people live this way. They remain in environments too small for their growth. They begin lowering their expectations, silencing their gifts, hiding their ambitions, convincing themselves they are asking for too much. The Stoics would disagree. Seeking respect is not arrogance. Seeking peace is not selfishness. Seeking healthy relationships is not pride. It is wisdom. There was another story about a gifted musician named Samuel. For years, he performed in a small restaurant where few people listened. Guests talked loudly while he played. Some barely noticed he was there. Others treated his music as background noise. Samuel slowly began believing he wasn't talented. One evening, a traveler stopped to listen. After the performance, the traveler approached him and said, "You belong on a concert stage." Samuel laughed. "No one has ever said that before." The traveler replied, "That doesn't mean it isn't true." Months later, Samuel accepted an invitation to perform at a music festival. When he finished playing, the audience stood and applauded for several minutes. Samuel cried, not because he had suddenly become a better musician, because for the first time, he was surrounded by people capable of appreciating what had always been there. The lesson is simple. Never let an environment convince you that you have no value. Sometimes the problem is not your worth. Sometimes the audience lacks the eyes to see it. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves that external opinions cannot define internal value. If you know your character, if you continue improving, if you remain faithful to your principles, do not allow temporary rejection to rewrite your identity. Walking away from a place where you are merely tolerated is not admitting defeat. It is refusing to abandon yourself. Many people fear leaving because they imagine starting over. They fear uncertainty. They fear loneliness. They fear being judged. But staying somewhere that slowly destroys your confidence has a much greater cost. The cost is invisible. It steals your joy, your motivation, your belief in yourself, little by little, until one day you no longer recognize the person you have become. The Stoics believe that protecting your inner world is one of life's highest responsibilities. Because once peace disappears, every external success loses its meaning. Never spend years trying to earn appreciation from people who have already decided not to give it. Go where your character is respected. Go where your efforts are valued. Go where your presence brings light instead of being treated like a shadow. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is quietly leave the place that no longer deserves you. Point number 5. Never sacrifice your peace to keep someone comfortable. One of the most expensive things you can ever lose is not your money. It is not your reputation. It is not your possessions. It is your peace. Because once your inner peace disappears, even the most beautiful life begins to feel heavy. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that peace is not something you find. It is something you protect. Yet countless people surrender it every day. They remain in relationships that constantly create anxiety. They continue conversations that always end in disrespect. They tolerate behavior that slowly destroys their confidence, all because they are afraid of making someone else uncomfortable. But here is the painful truth. Many people are willing to let you suffer, as long as they remain comfortable. There was a woman named Emma. Emma had always been gentle. She hated conflict. She wanted everyone around her to be happy. Whenever someone crossed her boundaries, she stayed silent. Whenever someone spoke to her disrespectfully, she smiled. Whenever someone asked for more than she could give, she said yes. She believed kindness meant never disappointing anyone. For a while, everyone praised her. They called her generous, patient, easy to work with. But inside, Emma was exhausted. Every morning, she woke with anxiety. Every evening, she felt emotionally drained. She couldn't understand why. After all, she was doing everything to keep everyone else happy. One afternoon, she visited an elderly counselor. After listening carefully, the old man filled a glass with water until it overflowed. Water spilled across the table. Emma looked confused. The old man smiled and asked, "What happened?" Emma answered, "The glass couldn't hold any more." He nodded, "And neither can you. You have spent years pouring yourself into everyone else. But who has been pouring into you?" Emma had no answer, because the truth was painful. No one. She had become so busy protecting everyone else's comfort that she forgot to protect her own peace. The Stoics believe that a peaceful mind is worth more than the approval of 1,000 people, because approval comes and goes. Peace allows you to live. Imagine carrying a heavy bucket of water every single day. At first, it seems manageable, but day after day, week after week, month after month, the weight begins to change your posture. Your shoulders ache. Your back hurts. Eventually, you forget what it felt like to walk without carrying it. Many people carry emotional burdens the same way. They become so accustomed to stress, to disrespect, to constant disappointment, that they mistake emotional exhaustion for normal life. It is not normal. It is simply familiar, and familiarity often disguises suffering. Emma slowly began changing, not all at once, one small decision at a time. She started saying no without apologizing. She stopped answering messages that only brought anxiety. She stopped attending gatherings where she constantly felt diminished. She stopped explaining every decision she made. At first, people complained. Some accused her of becoming cold. Others said she had changed. They were correct. She had changed. She finally understood that protecting her peace was not selfish. It was necessary. The Stoics never encouraged unnecessary conflict, but they also never encouraged unnecessary suffering. There is a difference between sacrifice and self-destruction. Sacrifice serves a meaningful purpose. Self-destruction simply teaches others that your well-being is negotiable. There was another man named Benjamin. Benjamin spent years trying to keep peace within his family. Whenever arguments erupted, he became the mediator. Whenever someone behaved unfairly, he accepted the blame just to restore harmony. At first, everyone appreciated him, but over time, they expected it. Whenever problems appeared, Benjamin fixed them. Whenever tensions rose, Benjamin absorbed them, until one day, he realized something heartbreaking. Everyone else had peace, because he carried all the conflict himself. That evening, Benjamin sat alone beside a quiet lake. An old fisherman noticed his troubled expression and walked over. Without asking many questions, the fisherman simply pointed toward the calm water. He dropped a single stone into the lake. Ripples spread in every direction. Then he said, "One stone disturbed the entire surface." Benjamin nodded. The fisherman continued, "Now imagine someone throwing stones into your mind every day. How long before your peace disappears?" Benjamin understood immediately. He had allowed too many people unrestricted access to his emotional world. The Stoics taught that your mind is like a sacred temple. Not everyone deserves unlimited access. Some people enter with respect. Others enter only to create chaos. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Benjamin gradually stopped accepting responsibility for problems that were never his to solve. He learned something liberating. You are not responsible for fixing every broken person. You are not responsible for carrying every emotional burden. You are not responsible for making everyone happy. Your responsibility is to live honorably, to act with kindness, to maintain your character, but never at the cost of your own soul. Many people fear setting boundaries because they worry others will leave. Sometimes they will, but ask yourself honestly, if someone only stays because you constantly sacrifice your peace, did they truly value you? Or did they simply value what they could take from you? The answer may hurt, but truth always heals faster than illusion. The Stoics believe that wisdom often requires letting people become disappointed, not because you enjoy hurting them, but because disappointing others is sometimes the price of respecting yourself. There is an old story about a monk who carried a candle through a violent storm. Another traveler asked, "Why don't you hand your candle to everyone whose light has gone out?" The monk smiled. "If I give away my entire flame, there will soon be darkness for all of us." That is exactly how peace works. You cannot continue giving from an empty heart. You cannot continue loving from a broken spirit. You cannot continue supporting everyone while quietly collapsing inside. Protecting your peace protects your ability to continue doing good. That is why the Stoics considered inner tranquility one of life's greatest treasures. Not because peace avoids difficulty, but because peace allows you to face difficulty without losing yourself. Never destroy your own peace just to protect the comfort of people who would never sacrifice theirs for you. Sometimes the quietest goodbye is the loudest act of self-respect. Point number 6. Let your absence teach the lesson your words never could. Many people believe that if they explain themselves one more time, everything will change. If they send one more message, one more apology, one more heartfelt conversation, the other person will finally understand. Sometimes that happens, but often, the people who truly refuse to value you are not lacking information. They are lacking appreciation. No amount of explaining can create gratitude inside someone who has already chosen indifference. The Stoics understood something that modern life often forgets. Words have power, but silence has power too. There are moments when speaking demonstrates courage, and there are moments when quietly walking away demonstrates even greater courage. There was a young architect named David. David had a close friend he admired deeply. For years they shared dreams, encouraged one another, and celebrated every achievement together. But as time passed, the friendship changed. David was always the first to call, always the first to forgive, always the one making excuses whenever his friend canceled plans, forgot promises, or disappeared for weeks. Whenever David expressed his feelings, his friend would say, "You worry too much. You're too emotional. You're imagining things." So David tried harder. He explained himself more carefully. He became more patient. He became more understanding. Yet nothing improved. One evening, after another disappointing conversation, David visited an old library where he often went to think. An elderly librarian noticed his troubled expression and invited him to sit. David explained everything. When he finished, the old man smiled gently and asked, "If someone refuses to read a book, will reading the title louder make them understand its contents?" David laughed quietly. "Of course not." The librarian nodded. "Then why do you believe repeating yourself to someone who refuses to listen will suddenly change their heart?" David sat in silence. The answer was obvious. He had confused persistence with wisdom. The Stoics believed wisdom requires recognizing when effort is meaningful and when it becomes self-inflicted suffering. There comes a point when repeating yourself no longer creates understanding. It simply creates exhaustion. David made a difficult decision. He stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped trying to convince. He simply became quieter. His friend barely noticed at first. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon his phone rang. It was the same friend. "I haven't heard from you. I thought something happened." David smiled. "No, I simply stopped interrupting your silence." Those words lingered in the conversation longer than any argument ever had. Sometimes your absence says what your presence never could. Not because silence punishes people, because silence reveals reality. When you stop carrying the relationship alone, people finally see how much weight you were carrying. The Stoics never encouraged manipulation. Leaving quietly should never become a strategy to make someone miss you. It should become a decision to protect your dignity, whether they notice or not. Your peace should remain the goal. Imagine a musician playing beautiful music in a crowded marketplace. Most people hurry past without listening. The musician becomes louder. Still, if you stop, eventually he stops playing altogether. Only then do some people realize the music is gone. Not because the music lacked beauty, because people often fail to appreciate what is constantly available. Human beings can become accustomed to loyalty, accustomed to kindness, accustomed to your presence, until they mistake your consistency for permanence. Then they assume you will always remain, no matter how poorly they treat you. The Stoics warned against allowing others to mistake your patience for weakness. Patience is a virtue. Endless availability without respect is self-neglect. There was another story about an elderly gardener named Thomas. Every morning, he watered every flower in his garden. One plant, however, had become diseased. No matter how much water Thomas gave it, it continued spreading decay to the healthy plants nearby. His grandson asked, "Why don't you keep trying to save it?" Thomas replied, "I have. But if I sacrifice the entire garden trying to rescue one dying plant, I lose everything." Some relationships are like that. You pour in time, energy, forgiveness, understanding, yet the relationship continues damaging your peace. Wisdom sometimes requires stepping away, not because people are beyond hope, but because your life is also valuable. Your energy is also limited. Your future also deserves protection. The Stoics believe that every day is a portion of life that can never be recovered. Imagine spending years trying to convince someone to value you, only to discover they never intended to. How much time would be lost? How many opportunities would disappear? How much peace would be sacrificed? This is why Stoicism teaches acceptance. Accept reality, not because reality is always pleasant, because resisting obvious truth only prolongs unnecessary suffering. David eventually built new friendships, relationships where conversations flowed naturally, where respect was mutual, where appreciation required no begging. Looking back, he realized something extraordinary. The friendship he fought hardest to preserve had already ended long before he walked away. He had simply refused to see it. Many people remain trapped in memories. They continue loving who someone used to be, while ignoring who they have become. The Stoics would gently remind us, judge people by their actions, not by your hopes, not by your memories, not by their promises. Actions reveal character. Consistency reveals truth. When respect disappears consistently, believe what life is showing you. There is tremendous strength in leaving quietly. No public announcement, no dramatic farewell, no attempt to make the other person feel guilty. Simply peace, simply distance, simply dignity. Because sometimes the greatest lesson someone will ever learn is discovering what life feels like after losing someone who genuinely cared for them. Whether they learn that lesson or not is no longer your responsibility. Your responsibility is to continue living honorably, continue growing, continue protecting your peace, continue surrounding yourself with people who recognize your value without being persuaded. Your silence should never be a weapon. Let it become your freedom. Because the people who truly value you will never require your absence to realize your worth. Point number 7. Choose yourself without hatred, without revenge, and without regret. Perhaps the greatest lesson Stoicism teaches is this: walking away is not an act of anger. It is an act of wisdom. Many people believe that leaving means giving up. They believe that if they walk away, they have failed. But the Stoics saw things differently. Sometimes the greatest victory is not winning an argument. It is refusing to continue a battle that is slowly destroying your peace. There was a man named Jonathan. For years, he gave everything he had to the people around him. He was the dependable friend, the loyal employee, the forgiving family member. Whenever someone disappointed him, he gave another chance. Whenever someone broke his trust, he explained it away. Whenever someone treated him as though he did not matter, he convinced himself they were simply having a difficult time. Jonathan believed that endurance alone would eventually change people. But years passed. The people around him remained the same. The only person who was changing was him. He became quieter, more anxious, more exhausted. He smiled less. He laughed less. He began questioning his own worth. One morning, while taking a long walk through a forest, Jonathan noticed two enormous oak trees standing side by side. One tree was healthy and strong. Its branches stretched confidently toward the sky. The other tree leaned dangerously. Many of its branches were broken. Its trunk had deep scars. An elderly woodsman noticed Jonathan studying the trees. He walked over and said, "Do you know why one tree survived while the other became weak?" Jonathan shook his head. The old man pointed toward the damaged tree. It spent years growing around a heavy chain someone wrapped around it. The chain was never meant to stay there, but the tree adapted to its burden. It grew around it. It carried unnecessary weight until that weight became part of its life. Then the woodsman looked directly at Jonathan. Many people live exactly like that. They become so accustomed to carrying disrespect, disappointment, and emotional pain that they mistake suffering for love. Those words reached Jonathan's heart because he realized he had spent years growing around burdens he was never meant to carry. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves to distinguish between what belongs to them and what does not. Your character belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your peace belongs to you. Other people's opinions, other people's gratitude, other people's decisions do not belong to you. Trying to control them only creates suffering. Jonathan finally understood. He did not need revenge. He did not need to prove anyone wrong. He did not need people to admit they had treated him unfairly. He only needed the courage to walk forward, quietly, peacefully, with dignity. That decision transformed his life. Not overnight. Healing never happens overnight. Some mornings were still painful. Some memories still hurt. Some questions remained unanswered. But little by little, the weight became lighter. His laughter returned. His confidence returned. His peace returned. And one day he noticed something remarkable. He no longer missed the people who had failed to value him. He missed the version of himself that existed before they convinced him he was not enough. The Stoics believe this is one of the greatest victories a human being can achieve. Not defeating another person, but returning to yourself. There was another story about a sculptor named Adrian. Every day, he worked on a magnificent statue carved from white marble. Visitors often asked him, "How do you create something so beautiful?" Adrian always gave the same answer. "I don't create it. I simply remove everything that doesn't belong." The Stoics believed life works the same way. Peace is already within you. Confidence is already within you. Dignity is already within you. Sometimes all you must do is remove the relationships, the habits, the fears, and the people who continually convince you that you are less than you truly are. Walking away is not losing. It is removing what no longer belongs in your life. And when you do, the person you were always meant to become finally has room to emerge. Never hate those who failed to value you. Simply become unavailable to those who repeatedly choose not to. Because peace grows where resentment ends. Let's remember the 7 Stoic lessons from today's journey. Stop trying to convince people of your worth. Stop chasing people who keep walking away. When respect disappears, let your presence disappear too. Stop staying where you are merely tolerated. Never sacrifice your peace to keep someone else comfortable. Let your absence teach the lesson your words never could. And finally, choose yourself without hatred, without revenge, and without regret. These are not lessons about becoming cold. They are lessons about becoming wise. Stoicism does not teach us to stop loving people. It teaches us to stop abandoning ourselves in the process of loving them. There is a profound difference. A Stoic heart remains compassionate. It remains forgiving. It remains generous. But it also remains discerning. It knows that kindness without wisdom becomes self-destruction. It knows that forgiveness does not require continued access. It knows that loving someone does not mean accepting repeated disrespect. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself throughout his life, your peace depends far more on your own judgments and choices than on the behavior of other people. You cannot force someone to appreciate you. You cannot make another person become loyal. You cannot persuade someone to value what they have already chosen to neglect. But you can choose your response. You can choose your standards. You can choose where your energy goes. You can choose the people who deserve a place in your life. And perhaps that is the greatest freedom any person can possess. As you leave this video, remember one simple truth. Your value has never depended on someone else's ability to recognize it. The sun does not stop shining because one person closes the curtains. A diamond does not become ordinary because someone mistakes it for a stone. And a person of character does not lose their worth because they were surrounded by people who could not see it. Walk away quietly when necessary. Not to punish, not to manipulate, not to make someone chase you. Walk away because your peace is precious. Walk away because your dignity matters. Walk away because the life you are building deserves relationships rooted in respect, honesty, and mutual appreciation. One day, you will look back and realize that the hardest goodbye became the beginning of your greatest growth. The silence that once felt lonely became peaceful. The space left behind became room for better people, healthier relationships, and a stronger version of yourself. That is the quiet power of Stoicism. It teaches you that the strongest people are not those who hold on to everything. They are the ones who know exactly what and who to let go. If this message spoke to your heart, subscribe to Stoic Reflections for more videos on Stoicism, self-mastery, emotional intelligence, mental strength, wisdom, and personal growth. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder that self-respect is not selfish, it is essential. And always remember, if they don't value you, leave quietly, because those who truly deserve your presence will never make you beg for it. They will recognize your worth, respect your peace, and appreciate your heart, without you ever having to convince them.